In this chapter, we'll look at scope and casting. The casting rules we have already looked at in the previous chapters, but we'll just revisit them. So casting from lower to higher data types is implicit. Casting from higher to lower data types is explicit. Truncation can happen if large value is attempted to be stored. With respect to expressions, expression containing int or lower data types will result in int. Expression containing long or lower data types, the result will be converted to long. Expression containing float or lower data types, the result will be converted into float. Expression containing double or lower data types, the result will be converted to double. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. So in the first example, we are trying to store a byte value into int value. So since the destination data type is higher, the casting is automatic. The second example, we are trying to store the long value into an int value. So since the destination data type is lower, an explicit cast is needed. In the third example, we are having a byte, and all we are trying to do is we are trying to take the byte and multiply it by 2 and again storing it in byte. So here, as we know, when an expression by default, they'll be getting converted into int if int or lower data types are involved. So this particular expression is going to give us an error. So hence, in order to fix this, either we'll have to change the destination data type to int or do an explicit cast. In the fourth example, we are having a long val multiplied by 3. The expression will be converted into long and we can store it in long. In the second last example, we are having an int val and we are trying to multiply it by 2f. F indicates that the 2 is a floating point. Hence, this expression will be getting converted into float and can be stored into float. In the final example, we are having again an int val and we are multiplying by 2d. So d suffix tells that we will be treating this as a double value. Hence, the expression will be evaluated into a double val and we are trying to store it in double. So let's take a look at a demo example. So we have created a very simple class, expression conversion demo. So it is having public static main method. We'll introduce a method to print to console. So let's try to introduce our method to have the byte expressions. So here we have introduced one method, byte expression. We are having a byte val, we have assigned it 10, int val, assign it 10. In this particular expression, so it's trying to multiply the current byte val by 2 and trying to store it in byte val. Now you'll see that it is showing a red weekly, it's a compilation error. So what is happening here is going to get converted into int and we are trying to store the int into byte. So that's why it is resulting in a compilation error. So there are two ways to fix it, either add a cast or convert the byte val to int. So let's try to add in cast. So here you can see that we have done the cast. And now if you try to run this, so here we are calling the show method to print the byte val. Similarly, show method to print the int val. So if you try to run this, I'll show you the byte val as 20 and int val is equal to 40 because we are taking the 20 value and again trying to multiply it by 2. Let's try to introduce int expression method and try to use expression that involve int. So in here we are having int val and long val being initialized to 10 each, and in this expression we are taking int val star 2 So since the expression contains the highest data type as int, so it is going to convert into int and storing in int. So this should work as is correctly without needing explicit cast. In here, we are again having the same expression, but here appended L, so which means this 2 is a long value. So since the expression involves long or lower data types, it's going to get converted into long. Hence, it is give compilation error. So we can fix this by adding a cast. So here you see that the compilation is no more. And if we try to run this, it should show us, sorry, we'll have to invoke this function here, expression. Yeah. So we are trying to run this. Here you can see the int val is 10 and long val is equal to 10. Well, the long val we have not like assigned it to it, so hence it is going to keep it as is. So let's try to demo examples of long expression. So we'll be introducing a method. So in this method, we are having byte and long, each being assigned 10. And in the first expression, we are saying long value equals to byte value star 2. So the expression is going to get converted into int, and we are trying to assign int to long value without any cast. So this is fine. The second one, we are doing int val star 2. So this will again get converted into int. So no casting is required from int to long. Third one, we are trying to take long value multiplied by 2. The resultant is going to be long. We have to and we are storing long into long. So this is also fine. No casting is required. And we are doing a show on int val and long val. So let's invoke this function from this. And we'll try to run this. And you'll see it is printing int val equals to 10, long val equals to 40. So let's discuss about scope. The scope of variable is a portion of the code where it is valid. So for variables declared in a method, the scope starts at the place where it is declared and ends when the curly braces is closed. The scope of a data member will be for the life of the object of that class. We'll be talking about classes and object in next part. Scope of a static data members will be for the life of that program. We'll be introducing static members in the later sections. So we have declared a class scope demo, and as in previous example, we have a show method to print to standard console, and we have a main method to invoke them, right? So let's introduce two data members. So one is account. So this is a non-static data member. We can call it public. And another one is a static data member. Let's see what happens when we try to print this. So in here, we are trying to print the scope demo.count and scope demo.total count. So as you can see, this is showing a compilation error because this is a data member. It's a non-static member. Hence, we cannot directly use scope demo.count. So in order to print this, we'll have to create an object of scope demo and then use the object reference to print this. So this should work fine, right? So let's try to run this and see the results. As you can see that we are able to see 10 and 20 here. So we introduce one more static method, scope test, and we'll try to invoke the scope test from here. So right now it is empty, but we'll be showing you how the scope is affecting the variables that we'll be defining sooner. So now let's introduce another variable int x equals to 10, and we are again invoking show to show it. Now if we try to run this, you'll see that printing 1 x is 10. Now we'll try to introduce scope for this, and we'll say x is equal to x plus 5 and print this using show method. Let's see what the result is. You'll see that it is able to increment x by 5, so now we have x as 15. Let's introduce a show after the scope is complete. So this particular scope is restricted here, but of course since x was declared outside this, the scope of x still remains, so hence any changes within this scope to x, it should still be reflected after we end this particular scope. Let's try to run this. So here you can see that it is retaining the value of x. So now let's try to define one more scope here, and we'll create another variable y, and we'll assign this values like 100, let's say, right? And we'll call the show method to print this just to verify. We'll call it step 4 y y, and we'll try to run this, and let's see if this is able to print. As expected, it should print 100, right? Now what happens when we try to have the show method outside the scope, right? So you can see that it is showing a red wiggly, so which means it doesn't know what is y, right? Because as we mentioned, the scope for y is within these brackets that is showing that error. So just to do the recap, the rules governing the casting and expression. Casting from low to higher data types is implicit. Casting from higher to lower data type is explicit, and truncation can result if you are storing higher value. In the expression which involve int or lower, the result will be int. The expression that involves long or lower value, the result will be converted to long. The expression that involve float or lower value, it will be converted into float. The expression that contain double or lower value, it will be converted to double. Scope is the portion of the code where it is valid. For data members, the life of the object would be the scope. For static members, the life would be for that of the program. And for any other variables declared within the method, the scope will be limited to that method.